So after unintentionally revealing the truth to Tachibana, Hiruto is trying to psych himself up to reveal it to Sakura as well. However, Sakura also has something to tell him. And she goes first and tells him about the fake girlfriend thing with Tachibana to get his mom off his back, about the whole marriage situation. Clearly, this was hard for her to tell him, and he just can't bring himself to tell her the truth now. But he does reveal a different truth. He reveals that the spicy night that they spent together after the mixer party was all a lie. They didn't do anything. He explains to her that she was very drunk and the reason she was naked was because she took off her own clothes. Not only that, but when he tried to put her to bed, she wouldn't let go of him, thus he ended up just sleeping next to her. And that's all that happened. He says that the reason that he didn't want to tell her the truth at first was because he figured if they had done spicy things together, then he would have a better shot at dating her, which is hilarious. I was like, that is not good at all. Now, this truth that he revealed is actually a good thing for many reasons. One, because if they did actually sleep together, it would have been bad because that would have meant that he was taking advantage of her, considering how wasted she was that night. And she's also not very angry about this, because she doesn't remember it anyway, and because it never happened. Now that when it does happen, she'll remember. But she does kind of feel dumb because she did think that she was pregnant. Anyway, so it's kind of a good thing after all. Now, side plot. So our girl Miki is still looking for a part-time job, and while she's out there bombing another interview, she runs into the host. What was his name? Masashi? Something like that. The host that she met that night at the host bar. And he's like, hey, you remember me? Like, whatever. And she sits and has a coffee with him because he asked her to, and he then offers her a job working for him. Now, the job that he's offering her is to monitor his stocks. That's boring. Anyway, and she's like, I don't know how to do that. And he's like, it's super easy, like really easy. And he's paying her decent money, so she's like, all right, cool, why not? I'm like, girl, this is sketchy. I don't know. I'm like, this is sketchy, but she can't find anything else, so she takes the job. And she reveals it at dinner that night to her family, who are all super excited for her. Now, she doesn't say what the job is or who she's working for, just that she found a job. And the mother-in-law has the audacity to make some kind of snide comment that, like, she should be more focused on taking care of her family and whatever. And this makes everybody feel uncomfortable. But again, her husband says nothing. I swear that man bothers me so much. Anyway, back to the main plot. Sakura and Hiruto are planning a little romantic weekend getaway, which is like really cute, but it seems like they're sort of planning this so that they can have their first time together and it will be like perfect. Now, as they're planning this, Hiruto brings up the idea of him having a key to her place. Which you can tell when he asks her, he's like super nervous about it. Like, he tries to play it off like it's not that big of a deal if she says no. He's like, I mean, if you want to give me another key, like, that's fine, but like, if not, it's cool. And Sakura's actually really excited about this because it just shows how serious they both are about the relationship. So she's actually very happy to give him a key, because his explanation to why he wants a key is because he goes over there all the time, and you know, it's kind of annoying if he has to like buzz in and be let in, especially if she's not there. Like, that's inconvenient because she's the only one that can let him in. So that's a very like cute moment, I feel like, and a big step in the relationship. Like, he's getting a house key, babes. That's crazy, especially because she doesn't even know where he lives. But okay. We as the audience don't even really know where he lives either. It's unclear. So now, as Sakura and Hiroto are in pre-coitus bliss, Tachibana is thinking about what Hiroto said to him about how if he was dating Choko-chan, then things could have been different. And so he kind of decides to give Choko-chan a shot. Now, it doesn't seem like he actually wants to date her. It seems like he's dating her for the sake of Sakura. Which, like, this is worse. This is even worse than what Hiroto was doing, kind of. When you think about it, like, now he knows the truth and he's still going to date her for the sake of Sakura, which is not what she wants. She wants him to actually like her. Side plot time. So my favorite girls, they're at the public pool because it is the beginning of summer vacation. You know what I'm saying? So they're chilling at the pool, having fun. They're always doing something together. I love that for them. And once they're done, as they're leaving, Shima runs into her ex-husband. I feel so bad for my girl. She runs into her ex-husband, who is remarried and has a 4-year-old daughter. Now we kind of find out that part of the reason that she got this divorce was because they wanted different things. He wanted kids. She didn't. Therefore, yeah. That's what it seems like is going on anyway. And this kind of puts her out of sorts and, like, puts her in a bad mood because she's still single, which she was content with until somewhat recently. And now she's kind of, like, rethinking her life a little bit, you know? She's like, oh, I've been single for a while. Maybe I want to resettle down. Me just going out, hooking up with random guys isn't satisfying anymore. So she goes to Ken-chan's for some drinks and by herself. And she ends up running into this guy that she had hooked up with in the bathroom, like probably a couple weeks ago. And this guy goes over to her like, hey, I'm that guy that you hooked up with in the bathroom. And she's like, okay. And he kind of suggests that they get spicy again with himself and his 2 friends.
Are you fucking dumb?
And she was like, boy bye, you really thought. But this kind of makes her realize how most men see her, because she is this, like, sexy, attractive woman who's just so alluring, and men seem to only want one thing from her. And she's starting to feel like the only man that is nice and cares about more than just that from her is Miki's husband, unfortunately. Now, she doesn't want him in a romantic sense, but she does see him as a friend. And so she goes to meet up with him at a different bar to have a couple drinks. And they talk, and she starts to feel better about the whole situation. Now, unfortunately, as they are leaving the bar, Miki is coming out of, like, the convenience store or something, and she sees them. At first, she just sees Shima and is gonna, like, go over to her and be like, oh, Shima. But then she sees her husband come out afterwards, and they seem very buddy-buddy. And with the whole her thinking that her husband's having an affair, she's thinking this is exactly what's going on. And this sends her into a complete spiral. She has no idea what she's doing or what, you know, where to go or anything of the sort. It's just a misunderstanding. I just don't want my girls to fight. Like, it's just a misunderstanding. Anyway, while this is all going on, Sakura gets home from work and she is met by Hiroto, who now has a house key. And he got there before her and cooked her dinner. And I was like, girl, if you don't wife him up right now, if you don't wife this man up right now. Anyway, so he has dinner prepared for her. He's so cute and bubbly and excited. This whole house key thing was clearly a good idea. And they're both like kind of packing their bags for their little weekend getaway. So cute, and like they're joking around and having fun. And honestly, it kind of seems like they're about to have spicy times before their trip even happens. But then they are rudely interrupted by a concerning call from Miki's husband, who cannot find his wife. He's like, hey, is my wife with you? Because I don't know where she is. She's not home. She's not answering her phone. She's just not around. And Sakura is very concerned, like, what? So Sakura and Hiruto go to Ken-chan's place to see if he's seen Miki as of tonight, where they also run into Tachibana and Choco-chan, who seem to be having like a little date. Choco-chan seems very happy and also very annoyed that they're interrupted by who other than Sakura. And again, her and Hiruto act like they don't know each other, which is super awkward because now Tachibana knows the situation here, and it's just an awkward dynamic. And then Shima and Miki's husband come running in to Ken-chan's place as well, which is super awkward, and Sakura's kind of like, I've seen this before. So earlier on, in an earlier episode, Sakura had seen Shima coming out of a hotel with Miki's husband, but again, Sakura didn't know it was Miki's husband either. So this doesn't look good for Shima, okay? Sakura's getting the wrong idea as well, and it's just, my gal pals are like, they're fighting, and I don't like it. Now, where is Miki, you may be asking? Well, Miki, being flustered and not knowing what to do about the situation, instinctively found herself at the host bar waiting for whatever his name is, Misashi, I forget already, okay? But she's waiting for him, and he helps her out and brings her back to his place, where she feels like she's being finessed by him. Because she's like, okay, hold on. This guy obviously doesn't know how to give actual comfort. He just gives comfort through spicy time. And so he tries to get spicy with her, and she's like, what is going... No! And then she runs off and goes to Sakura's place. So Sakura's trip is gonna have to be put on hold because her friend needs her. And Hiruto, a little disappointed but understand. This situation sucks for everyone. Miki is staying with Sakura at her place, and she's kind of become Sakura's housewife. Cooking and cleaning and all that. While she figures out what she's gonna do about this whole situation with her husband and Shima. While she's playing housewife at Sakura's place, her house is falling apart. Literally nobody can function without her, which I think is funny because the mother-in-law had so much to say when she wasn't there, and even now that she's not there, she's like blaming her. Like, oh, she should be here taking care of her house and her husband and her kids and blah blah blah. Whereas she can't even like do half the things that Miki does on a regular basis. I swear, that woman is too much. Like, she's actually so annoying. Also, the mother-in-law has no idea what's going on and why Miki left. Like, she just thinks that they had, like, a meager fight, and that's why she left. And I'm like, girl, if only you knew. If only you knew. Then again, even if she did know, she'd probably take her son's side anyways. So yeah. Meanwhile, Sakura has gotten a little bit dressed up. I mean, she's dressing casual, but way better than what she usually dresses. And she shows up to work, all excited or whatever, and we find out it's because Hiruto is going there to get his hair cut by her, which is, like, really cute. Because she kind of gets to, like, show him off to all her co-workers and stuff, and they're all very impressed, like, oh my god, that's your boyfriend? Okay, I see you. Yeah. And it kind of seems like he's getting this fresh haircut because they have plans. I guess because they didn't get their weekend getaway, he still wanted to do something. So he set up a little something else for them to do. Which is so cute. I'm like, oh my god, like, if you haven't fallen in love with Haruma Miura at this point, like, I don't know what it's gonna take. I don't know what it's gonna take. While Sakura is in complete bliss with Hiruto, Tachibana is not, okay? He's having a bad day because his ex shows up His ex shows up out of absolute nowhere and wants to talk. And it seems like she might want him back. Now this happens right in front of Toko-chan, who is also at the salon when the ex shows up. And I kind of feel bad for her. I'm like, girl, you just can't catch a break, can you? But also, I'm just like, I really don't get the hype over Tachibana. Like, I really don't. He says way too much misogynistic stuff. And I'm like, he's an okay guy. It's not like he's a bad dude or anything, but I'm just like, I don't get the hype and why people want him back and why there's fighting over him and whatever. Anyway, Toko-chan is there when he gives up his house key to his ex and is like, go wait at my apartment and we'll talk later. Obviously, Toko-chan is not happy about this. Because this is the woman that she was referring to when she said that she didn't want Tachibana to get hurt again like he did in his last relationship. Okay, so enough about Tachibana and his problems because I'm tired of him. Let's go back to happier things, being Hiroto and Sakura and their cute little date night situation. So we finally get to see what Hiroto has planned. And so him and Sakura dress up, like he's in like a cute suit, she's in a dress, although I don't like her dress. I don't like her dress, okay? It looks like a 5-year-old's dress or something like that. But anyway. And they meet at the hotel that they first met at, which is so cute. And he gets a room for them there. I don't know if it's the exact same room that they had the first night they met, but it looks very much the same. And they walk in and there's rose petals on the bed and champagne at the ready. He put in the effort, okay? And they're having a good time. They order in room service. It's a vibe. They're both in like bathrobes, you know, getting ready to get spicy. And Hiroto might have had just a little too much wine because he starts to get into his feels and ends up telling Sakura a little bit more about his past. Because honestly, Sakura doesn't really know a lot about him when you think about it. Like, he really hasn't like told her much about himself, so she just knows like the top level stuff. Now he's kind of getting deep, talking about family life and his childhood. So he tells Sakura the story of his parents getting divorced and his dad ended up getting remarried. The woman that he remarried had a younger daughter around his age. He's obviously talking about Choko-chan, so. And he said that, you know, she was like the light in both of their eyes and they both loved her very much, and he was jealous of that, which is understandable because they were very young kids when this happened. Like, he didn't look any older than like 5. Anyway, and he tells her that one night their parents went out and Choko-chan wanted something to eat. She was hungry, so Hiroto thought, oh, I'll make her donuts. And I don't know where the supervision was, because I would assume that they would have a nanny or something to watch them, but anyway. And the frying oil, which is obviously incredibly hot, that's on the stove, he went to go move it, and the pan ended up slipping and falling, and it burned her skin, which is how she got the burn mark on her back. He felt guilty, of course, especially because he was so jealous of her that it was almost like he caused this. Even though he didn't mean to spill the oil, he kind of felt like unintentionally he caused this by being so jealous of her. It's really sad. And you can tell how much the guilt weighs on him, which is why he weighs on Choko-chan hand and foot and does pretty much anything that she wants. And Sakura is comforting him throughout this whole thing, and they kind of end up just falling asleep afterwards. So needless to say, they did not have spicy time. Which, in the morning, when Hiroto wakes up, he is incredibly annoyed and embarrassed, and he feels bad because he was supposed to make this special moment for them both, and he ruined it by getting drunk and telling a sob story. And so he's kind of like, oh, like, we have time, like, it's early in the morning still. You know, he's like, we can still get it on.
Yeah, get into it!
And she's like, I gotta go to work. But she assures him that she did have a very good time and that she liked learning a little bit more about him, so the night wasn't totally lost or anything. Now, Hiroto also has to get going because he has a job interview at his father's company. So he's all dressed up, he's in a suit, he looks professional, he looks good, he's taking it seriously because he's seeing a future with Sakura, and he feels like this is like the first step to that future. So as soon as Hiroto is standing outside the building, he gets a text from none other than Momo. And this text is very suggestive, as she says that she will be moving to heaven with the child inside her. Yeah. Of course, Hiroto reads this and immediately runs over to her apartment, like full speed. Thus he misses his interview, obviously, and she's just sitting there in her lingerie on the bed. And she's amused that he even believed her. And he is horrified! Because of course, if she was pregnant, it would probably be his because of the amount that they hook up. And she explains that she just did it to get his attention. Now, although this is a horrible thing to do to somebody, like, don't ever text anyone something like that, that's terrible. But I do kind of feel bad for Momo because clearly she was this girl that could give him a certain kind of comfort when he needed it, but when it came to anything more, she was like nothing to him. Now that was the old Hiroto, okay? The new Hiroto is different, obviously, but I do kind of feel bad for her because it's like she's stuck by this guy's side for who knows how long. It seems like they were together for a while. But when push comes to shove, he doesn't actually want to be with her. So I kind of feel bad, but she still shouldn't have done that. That was crazy. So Tachibana's ex has been like hanging around for a few days, and obviously she wants to get back together with Tachibana because she is getting divorced from her husband. And now wants to go back with Tachibana. But she's starting to realize very quickly that that's probably not going to happen because she sees how he looks at Sakura and she can tell that he's interested in her. So she leaves. That's like pretty much the end of that plot line. Back to our side plot with our girls. So it's been a couple of days. Miki's been, like I said, she's been at Sakura's place the whole time and her house is still falling apart. Like, the kids are not getting proper meals, and house is a mess, just everything is a disaster. And Miki's mother-in-law continues to blame her for letting her house be getting like this and not making up with her husband and blah blah blah, even though she has no clue what's actually going on. And finally, someone stands up for her. Is it her husband? Of course not. Of course it's not him. It is her daughter. Whenever her grandma would make comments about her mom, she seemed uncomfortable the whole time. But now that her mom hasn't been there for days and the grandma's still talking shit, she decides to speak up and tell her, which, to be fair, she's right. Anyway, this whole situation seems to send Miki's husband into pain. They take him to the hospital, and so Miki's daughter calls her and it's like, Mom, Dad's at the hospital, we don't know what's wrong with him. And so Miki, of course, because she still cares about this man, duh, she scurries off to the hospital with her two gal pals because Sakura had set up a little meeting between the three of them so that they could all kind of make up and talk about things. But that gets interrupted by the phone call. So all three of them go to the hospital to see how Miki's husband is doing. Luckily, it was just his appendix or something like that, which apparently isn't a big deal. And he's fine, so yeah. But the good thing about this situation is it kind of opened that door for the girls to start to rekindle their relationship together, which I'm very happy about because I love these three together. So after everyone knows that Miki's husband is okay and it was just his appendix, Shima and Sakura leave the hospital to leave, you know, Miki with her family and all that. So Sakura gets home and is pretty much immediately met by Hiroto, who seems upset. Why? Because his father is pissed off that he missed the interview. He's like, you never took this seriously to begin with, did you? You just want to make a fool out of me, when that really wasn't the case. And Hiroto apologizes, but he doesn't tell his father the reason he missed the interview, which I wouldn't either, considering the way his father acts towards him. And he apologizes sincerely, but his dad yells at him and says that he never wants to see his face again, which is brutal. So upset, Hiroto runs off and goes over to Sakura's place, and she was not thinking that she was gonna see him again that night, so she's kind of surprised, and pretty much as soon as he gets through the door, he embraces Sakura and kisses her and is very... yeah. She doesn't really pick up on something is like, you know, that he's upset or anything like that, and I feel like he kind of isn't upset as soon as he sees her. It's almost like all that dissipates and he just feels comfort in her presence, you know? And so things start getting hot and heavy between them. And it leads them to Sakura's bedroom, and they have their first time, finally, after it got interrupted so many times. They finally have their first time together. And it's not perfect like they had tried to plan previously, but it works, you know? Now, back to Miki and her annoying-ass husband. So once he's, like, out of surgery and fine or whatever, she goes to see him, and she hasn't seen him in days, so this is about to be a interesting conversation. But before they really get a chance to talk, the mother-in-law decides to come in and have the audacity, yet again, to belittle Miki right in front of her husband for no reason. As if this is all her fault that his appendix exploded or whatever happened, like... But finally, after all this time, her husband finally grows some balls and decides to defend her against his mother. Now, his mother gets all, like, butthurt by this and, like, runs off. Like, oh my god, no one loves me, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, lady. As if she deserves any kind of sympathy. Then Miki's husband tells her honestly, which he should have done in the first place, about the whole erectile dysfunction situation, and that being the reason why he hasn't been hooking up with her, and how he got involved with Shima and all this other stuff. So that's like kind of cleared up now. Anyway, Miki, being like the ray of sunshine and such a good person that she is, couldn't be me, goes back home to find her mother-in-law and tells her that they love her and that she can stay with them and blah 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 blah, because the mom is having like a whole meltdown being like, oh, I have 2 sons and neither of them want me around. And I'm like, I wonder why. So that beef is squashed between her and her mother-in-law, and then she goes over to Sakura's place to officially squash the beef with her and Shima, which makes me so happy because my gal pals are back together, no hard feelings, like, it's all good. So everything is right in the world again, okay? Alright, back to our main situation. So Hiroto is at the skate park practicing for another tournament that is coming up very soon, and one of his friends like calls him over. He's like, hey, come here, I gotta talk to you. And he's telling him how he knows somebody, like one of his friends or something, like went to America to further pursue the BMX bike career and it's doing really well and blah blah blah, and that they should also do it too because they're still young, you know, and this is like what they want to pursue and have a career in. And they know Hiroto, especially him winning the last tournament, it's like a big deal, so he should think about coming with them to America. And he's like, yeah, no, he's like, I want to stay here, and he's like, I think I might be putting this on the back burner because I just want to focus on work and making money and stuff. And so of course his friends, who are also like the same age as him, you know, early 20s, they're like, dude, what's wrong with you? Are you getting married or something? Next thing you know, he's at a jewelry store looking at rings. And ironically enough, he ends up bumping into Miki's husband, who is also looking at jewelry. And despite the whole situation that just happened like a few days ago, he decides to ask Miki's husband how he knew that he wanted to marry Miki. Like, how did you know? And he very bluntly and honestly says he just knew that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her, which is honestly a good answer. So obviously Hiroto is taking this into deep consideration. While Hiroto is thinking about big life decisions, Choko-chan is losing her damn mind, honestly. She goes over to Tachibana's apartment to get a answer as to why he doesn't want to be with her. Because as we know, he broke up with her a little bit earlier on because he just didn't feel right about it. And she decides to strip down into her bra and panties to show him her biggest insecurity, the scar on her back. And she explains that it is the reason she's never been able to get into a serious relationship with anybody. So she reveals that there was a treatment that would have lessened her scar, like the appearance of it, but she decided not to get it because a boy she was in love with broke her heart, and she wanted to think that it was because of the scar that she had. Thus, she wanted to keep the scar to make him feel guilty for breaking her heart. But then she met Tachibana, and she just never thought that she would fall in love again. But after she met Tachibana, she regretted not getting the treatment. Let me tell you why this makes no sense. She met Tachibana, she told us she met Tachibana when she was in middle school. Okay? Which means this boy that she's talking about, she would have met in middle school. You see where I'm going with this? So she thought that some boy that she met when she was in middle school was gonna be the end-all be-all, and when he broke her heart, she decided to never love again, but then she met Tachibana and fell in love with him. Girl, what? I think part of it too is she wanted to keep the scar to remind the person who gave her the scar that she has leverage over him. And she uses that against him all the time. She uses Hiroto's guilt against him constantly throughout the show. And I just think it's funny that she had a chance to get rid of the scar and she chose not to, even though it's like the bane of her existence. And I'm just like, girl, move on. Like, I think she's supposed to be a year younger than Hiroto, so she's like 23 if he's 24. And I'm like, girl, it's not that serious. You need to move on. Okay, you are the standard of beauty. You can find literally anyone. Tachibana even says that it has nothing to do with the scar on her back, that he doesn't want to be with her, and has everything to do with the fact that he sees her as a little sister. Which is like, oh, forget friend zone. That's a whole different zone, okay? You get sibling zoned, like you're never coming out of that. And even though, you know, he rejected her, she decides to throw herself at him and be like, make me a woman just once. Meaning she wants to get spicy with him just once. And I'm like, oh my god, where's the self-respect? I can't. Choko-chan has lost her mind. Luckily, Tachibana does have morals, so he refuses this and tells her that she needs to learn how to love herself and not blame everything on the scar on her back. Which is fair, because clearly that's what she's doing. She acts like that scar holds her back from everything in life, and it really doesn't. However, somehow the only thing that she wanted to take away from this conversation was that she would be a burden to him. Which is not at all what he said, so I don't know where she got that from. Anywho, let's talk about better things. Sakura is hanging out at the skate park with Hiroto, who's practicing for another tournament, the national tournament, which is an extra big deal. And, you know, she's talking about how cool she thinks he looks when he's doing the tricks and riding the bike, which is just, like, really cute. And he's like, well, why don't you try? And she's like, oh, I can't do all of that. But she gets on his bike and is shakily riding it. My girl's like, And as she's shakily riding his bike, he kind of like has an epiphany or something and just spontaneously in the moment decides to ask her if she will marry him if he wins the national tournament, which like stops her in her tracks. She's like, huh? And he runs over to her with a little white box revealing a ring. So he did end up buying a ring at that jewelry store. And he says if he wins the tournament, then he'll put bikes aside and that will be like his hobby, and he'll get a real job so that he can support them. Now, even though he says this with such good intention, Sakura is happy and shocked, but also she's like, I don't want you to give up your dreams for me. Like, I'm almost 40, you're still young, like, I don't really know if this is what you actually want. He assures her that this is what he wants and that she is his dream now and he wants to have a family with her and love her forever, and it's so cute, and I'm like, oh my god. So after a long pause, she says yes. And this whole scene is kind of cute and funny because you can just see how nervous and awkward he was, but also I do think it is a little bit telling of his age because of the way he like freaks out when she says yes. It's like adorable. He does like a little run and jump. It's a whole thing. Sakura like almost collapses, probably from shock, and then he catches her and they have like a really cute hug, and it's a vibe, you know, it's a whole moment. So the two of them obviously have to go back to Sakura's place to celebrate, if you will. And Hiruto realizes like his phone is kind of blowing up in like the middle of the night, and she's like, what? He's like, what is going on? So the next day when he walks Sakura to work, he runs into Tachibana on his way out and decides to ask him like, how's it going with Choco-chan? Because she was blowing up my phone last night and I'm scared to ask why. And he tells him that he has officially ended things with Choco-chan because he just doesn't feel right pretending to be with her when he doesn't actually want to be with her, because he's in love with Sakura. Hiruto is not having any of this. He's like, well, that's gonna have to stop. You're gonna have to stop liking my fiance because we're getting married. This is obviously shocking news to Tachibana. And he's like, oh, great. But like, let's be so for real. Tachibana has never been in the running to be with Sakura. Just like point blank period. Okay, he was not in the running. He will never be in the running. Sakura does not like him in that way. She's made it very clear many times. Now, unfortunately, their little conversation on the stairs is being overheard by Choco-chan herself, which makes Choco-chan realize that Hiruto kind of suggested that Tachibana date her. So Tachibana didn't actually want to date her, which makes the whole situation even worse now that she's finding this out. Which I'm like, girl, if that ain't coming full circle, you reap what you sow, okay? Yeah, so she hears all this and is very pissed off at her brother. Very, very upset. That being said, it's Sakura's birthday. And because Hiruto is such a good boyfriend, he has planned an entire surprise party that she has literally no idea about. My guy's good at planning stuff. Like, honestly, he's kind of romantic in that way. Like, he's very on par with planning things for them to do and stuff. So the party's happening at Ken-chan's place because of course it is. Where else would it be happening? Get with the program, okay? Ken-chan's place is the only restaurant in town. And so all her co-workers are obviously going to be there. So they all are trying to like keep her at the salon so that they can finish setting up things and so everybody can get there before she does. Because she thinks that she's just going to meet up with Hiruto. So they give her like some paperwork or whatever, and she finally finishes the paperwork. Then she is met by Choco-chan, who is creepily waiting for her in the dark. And I'm like, girl, how long have you been sitting there waiting for her? Because she had like a lot of paperwork to get done. It's weird. And we don't know what they talk about yet, but everybody's finally excited because Sakura shows up to her surprise party and everyone yells surprise and it's a whole thing, and like, I guess because they've been waiting so long, no one realizes that the look on her face is not giving happiness. It's not giving surprise, it's giving sad. And she simply asks Hiroto if he's been pretending to love her. She doesn't even acknowledge anybody else. It's like she doesn't even notice that there's a whole party going on. And it's dead silent and so awkward. And Hiroto is really bad in these kind of situations. Like, he always freezes up and like doesn't know what to say in the moment. It like takes him way too long to register things. So he's standing there speechless, literally. Like, he doesn't know what to say. And because he doesn't know what to say, she runs off and Tachibana runs after her. Of course he does. And of course, Choko-chan revealed the truth to her because she felt slighted by her brother. She did it to get back at Hiroto. And I understand that Choko-chan is hurting and she feels betrayed and all this other stuff, but to hurt Hiroto like that when he just doesn't deserve it, like, he's weighed on her hand and foot probably their entire lives because of his guilt. And now when he finally feels like there's just like a little bit of goodness in his life, she is not having it. She doesn't want him to be happy, or she can't be. Plus I feel bad for Sakura because I'm like, oh, if he had told her this like early on, then like things maybe wouldn't be this way. Or maybe if he tried to explain right then and there in that moment, maybe she would have heard him out. So Tachibana runs after Sakura, but he like can't find her, and I'm like, she must be a track star if she ran away that quickly. But he can't find her, and he's calling her, and she finally answers, and he's like, where are you? And she's like, I'm on the roof of our apartment, which does not sound good when you just say that, especially when you're clearly in distress and now you're saying you're standing on a roof. So he runs to the rooftop of their apartment building, and she's just like laying there stargazing. Nowhere near the edge, thankfully. And you know, she's kind of contemplating, and she's like, oh, I don't know how I could be so foolish in the first place. To think that this guy would want to be with me and all this other stuff, which is like so sad because like we know that he actually does want to be with her. Then she kind of says that she feels like she just woke up from a dream, basically. Which is so sad. It makes me... Anyway, so after they're up there stargazing for a bit, she goes back to her apartment, and as soon as she opens the door, her entire apartment is thoroughly decorated for her birthday, which obviously Hiroto did, and it just makes her sad. Now, pretty much as soon as she gets in the door, there is a knock on her door. A knock from Hiroto. Now, Hiroto is pleading with her to let him in so that he can explain things, and you know, it's not what she thinks and all this other stuff, but she's just like not in the mood or headspace or anything to hear it right now. So Tachibana comes out of his apartment because he hears the commotion and shoos him away. Which honestly, like, I get it, it's for the plot, but it kind of annoys me that Tachibana is the one to comfort her in this scenario, because really it should be her two gal pals who were also at her surprise birthday party and just saw what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, but obviously they did it for the plot. So the next day, Sakura shows up at work, and it's like nothing happened. It's because all her co-workers were there and saw what happened too, but they're all being very normal for the sake of her, and she acts very normal as well, as if nothing happened yesterday. Couldn't be me, my ass would take a day or two off because this engagement is done now, clearly. It's just a whole thing, you know? Now, while she's trying to act normal at work, Hiroto goes to see Choko-chan and ask her, what the heck? He's like, why did you do that? He's not even as mad as what he should be at her. He really isn't. He's just like, why? She has no remorse. She said that she overheard him and Tachibana talking and she wanted to get back at him. And he's like, well, why didn't you just get back at me? Like, why would you hurt Sakura as well? And she's like, because it would hurt you the most if she hated you. Which is true, but also like, come on, girl. Like, you don't gotta be this petty. Side plot time, and it starts with my girl Shima, alright? So Shima is at Kenchan's place setting up this marriage meeting? Marriage meeting slash interview type thing. She's trying to find a husband. Very out of the blue, you would think. And all these men show up so that she can have her pick. And she narrows it down very quickly because Shima deals with guys all the time, you know what I mean? And she knows what most men want from her. So she narrows it down very fast, and she basically says, okay, so who's here to sleep with me? And she's like, raise your hand. A lot of the men there raise their hand. Idiots. And she's like, okay, if you raised your hand, you can go. And I was like, that's my girl, that's my girl. And then there's only 6 men remaining, and she simply asks them to play rock, paper, scissors with her. All at once. Which is so comical, and I'm like, girl's really going for fate. So she plays rock, paper, scissors with these guys, and one guy wins. And that is the guy that she picks to go out with. And the man that gets to court her is Shiguru-san. I feel like Shiguru is like kind of a hot guy name, you know? And he is awkward and clumsy, and it's kind of hard to tell if he's good looking or not, especially compared to a lot of the other men that were there. But yeah, so she's like, cool, you get to date me. And he's super awkward about it, and he's like, okay, cool. And he like stumbles up the stairs, it's a whole thing. And then Kentron is like, him? He's like, Shima, why did you do this? Like, what is that? And Shima simply says she wanted to set this all up to prove to Sakura that it doesn't matter how you meet somebody, it just matters how things end up. And I was like, yes, that is queen behavior, because Shima is really that girl. She really is a good friend. Also, like we said before, she's kind of like reevaluating her life and stuff now. So she really is looking for a long-term companion, not just to prove a point. So yeah, and she seems rather happy with her little decision because he's not like most men that she dates, so she's probably thinking that she has a better shot in this relationship with him. Okay, back to Sakura. Sakura's co-workers have been working overtime to make sure that she is not thinking about her failed engagement, by taking her out after work and just keeping her mind off of things. So they end up going out for dinner to Kenchan's restaurant, which I'm like, if you're gonna take her somewhere that Hiruto probably won't go, because of course Hiruto shows up. I don't know if he knew that she was gonna be there or not, but he shows up hoping that she's willing to talk to him now, and he explains and does admit to her that, you know, it started off as a lie, I guess, but he truly does love her now, and that he did fall for her. So let's do some critical thinking here. This 24-year-old who's hot can get anybody he wants, really. It would give him no benefit to continue this ruse of a relationship with Sakura just for the sake of his sisters to get with Tachibana, who doesn't want to be with her. You know what I mean? And that's been clear for quite some time. So it wouldn't benefit him in any way to stay with Sakura. Especially when he's the one paying for dates. He bought her a ring, which I'm sure was expensive. Like, we don't know how much he makes at his little warehouse job, but I'm sure it's not enough, you know what I'm saying? And he's not getting daddy's money, okay? He doesn't have an allowance like Choco-chan, so it would give him no benefit to keep putting his money and effort and time into this relationship if it was all just a ruse. You get what I'm getting at here? So, like, if she just thought for like 5 more seconds why this 24-year-old would want to be with her, court her, marry her, all for the sake of his sister's happiness. Like, be so for real. Ugh. And honestly, I think that he fell in love or started to fall in love with her the day of their very first real date, when they went to the sports center place and like played all those sports together and hung out the whole day, and then they kissed under the cherry blossom tree. Like, I think that's when he started to fall for her. You know what I mean? And I'm like, girl, give him a chance. Especially when you put so much time and effort into it, and he does seem very sincere. Anyway. And so he continues and he says, like, the proposal he gave her was a real proposal and he wants to be with her. And he asks if he wins the national tournament, if she will give him a chance again, to which she refuses. which breaks my heart. She refuses and walks away, and then Tachibana has the audacity to be like, stay away from Sakura because I can make her happier. And I'm like, when have you ever made Sakura happy? You are so rude to her. Like, for real, I'm just like, you're so mean to her all the time. I don't know when you're making her happy. And look, Nahito, the actor that plays Tachibana, he's hot, okay? Don't get me wrong, he's fine, okay? He's a hot ajashi. However, he is so annoying in this show. I don't know where he gets off, because he just figured out that he liked Sakura like 2 weeks ago. You've known her like for such a long time and you only realized that you liked her 2 weeks ago. Anyway, let me talk about my side plot because it makes me happier at the moment. So, my girl Shima is on her first date with Shiguru, and it's an experience. Shiguru is incredibly awkward and like lacks social skills. So Shima asks why he attended a marriage interview, and he simply says that he wants to change. So he has social anxiety and he's always been really awkward. So he figured if he was with a bold woman like Shima, then maybe he would be able to change. Now, Shima seems to really like his answer because it seems very genuine and it's kind of cute, considering like this guy is like in his early 40s and he's just... you can tell he's probably never been in like a serious relationship kind of thing. So it's like kind of cute. And it seems like Shima is ready to take on the challenge of making him into the man that he wants to be. Foreshadow, foreshadow. Anywho, Sakura gets back home from that awkward ambush with Hiruto and she finds a single rose in her mailbox. Very romantic, and like, obviously it's from Hiruto because roses are kind of their thing. She does kind of think it's sweet. And instead of throwing the rose out, like Tachibana was going to do, she wants to keep it and she takes it and puts it in a vase. And every single day, when she gets home from work or whatever, she finds a single rose in her mailbox, which is like really cute. Come on, that's like effort. Flowers are expensive, especially roses. So like even buying one rose every single day for her, like, is adding up. It's adding up. So as the days go by and her vase fills up with roses, she decides to finally text Hiruto, and she texts him, and it seems like she's somewhat forgiven him a bit, at least enough to hear him out more. And she texts him saying, "My vase is full, can we talk now?" Which is really cute. And Hiruto is ecstatic when he gets this text message. He's like, cool, he's at the skate park, he's ready to wrap it up and go over to see her right now. But he is rudely stopped by his sister. Choco-chan shows up and she doesn't like how happy he seems at the moment. And so, of course, he's kind of like, oh, Choco-chan, hi, yeah, I gotta go. And she's like, no, you're not going anywhere. She basically says if he goes to see Sakura, that she will never forgive him. And that stops him in his tracks because of everything that he's been through with her. It's so annoying, it's so upsetting that Choco-chan feels the need to block his happiness. Because it's not like her making him unhappy is making her happy. She's still just as miserable. But I guess misery loves company, right? She also does say that if he leaves, that she will down an entire bottle of sleeping pills. But she breaks down in tears and asks him not to leave, and that definitely stops him. So he does not go to see Sakura. Now, because Sakura hasn't heard back from Hiruto, she's like losing hope again. Like, he had her, and then he lost her again, because he didn't show up to talk. But the next day at work, Sakura finds out that Tachibana is leaving and is transferring to their branch salon in New York. That's a long ways away. And she's very shocked by this, but it's when he reveals his feelings for her, and the whole reason he put in the transfer was because he thought that she was gonna get married to Hiruto, but now that's clearly on the back burner. And now he kind of is like, well, why don't you come with me to New York? And she's like, huh? He basically says that he'll love her and protect her and she can come to New York with him and like start over. Now, she doesn't have feelings for him like that, but she is thinking maybe a new start might be good because this heartbreak is killing her. But she needs time to think about it, of course. When Hiruto is ready to meet her again, he does the dumbest thing he could possibly do. He basically tells her that he never liked her to begin with and like he was just putting on a whole ruse this entire time and he can't believe she fell for it and blah 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 and never to talk to him again. Obviously he's not being sincere about this at all, but it still hurts her feelings and he leaves and he hurts his own feelings because he starts crying because he realizes that his sister will just never let him be happy and Sakura will suffer in the process, so he decides to just let her go, thinking that Tachibana can give her a better life and make her happy. Okay, so now the side plot comes back into the main plot. So Miki is getting married to her husband again. They didn't divorce or anything, but I guess they just want to have another wedding? I don't know. Anyway, so when he was at the jewelry store when he met Hiruto, he also got a ring. So him and Hiruto were buying rings together, I guess. Now, because of what happened between Hiruto and Sakura, Miki wanted to postpone the wedding because it would kind of be insensitive since they got engaged around the same time and then, you know. But because Sakura is such a good friend, she's like, Miki, please, like your happiness is also important, so you're gonna have this wedding. So the girls are dress shopping because Shima and Sakura, I guess, are bridesmaids. So after the dress shopping, Sakura goes to meet up with Tachibana and they have a drink. When he decides to reveal that he knew about Hiruto lying to her and dating her for the sake of Choko-chan before her birthday party. I guess he couldn't keep it to himself any longer in good conscience, knowing that he's trying to now pursue a relationship with her. Now, Sakura doesn't really get mad at him for not telling her, which is crazy to me because she says that it's like not really his fault and like he didn't have any responsibility to tell her, but I'm like, yes he did, because if you consider yourself her friend and you supposedly care about her enough to say that you're in love with her now, then you should have told her when you found out. That's just my opinion. Like, granted, maybe he thought, you know, things would work out with her and Hiruto and all that, but still, I'm like, if you care about her as much as you say you do, and you truly thought this was a bad thing and that Hiruto was such a bad guy, then you would have told her. But he obviously doesn't think Hiruto is that bad of a guy because he didn't tell her. Like, you see what I'm saying here? Anyway. Then Tachibana takes it upon himself to go and meet up with Hiruto to tell him face to face that he will be moving to New York with Sakura. Even though Sakura hasn't actually said that she's going yet, but anywho. Now, Hiruto is kind of, you know, surprised and sad to hear this, but ultimately he just wants Sakura to be happy, and if this is what's going to make her happy, then what is he gonna say? Like, it's kind of interesting that Tachibana does this, because it kind of seems like he's giving him, like, a last-ditch effort to do something about his relationship with Sakura, despite him wanting to be with Sakura. While Tachibana is confronting Hiruto, Sakura runs into Choko-chan, and Choko-chan tries to avoid her like the plague, low-key.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
But Sakura wants to talk, and she doesn't seem mad at all at Choko-chan, but she basically is asking her, like, why is it that you don't want Hiruto to be happy? And she says that she should let him be free and be happy from his guilt, because clearly him being unhappy is not making Choko-chan any happier. And even though Tachibana even said something a little bit similar, and she didn't take in any of that when Tachibana said it, but it seems like Sakura might have gotten through to her a little bit. I mean, we can only hope. So Sakura goes back to her apartment and then decides that she wants to, like, hang out with Tachibana. So she goes over to his place and he's asleep on the couch. But she sees like all these boxes packed up, and then she sees on the table there's like a whole bunch of like flashcards, specifically tailored for her, you know, flashcards from Japanese to English so that she can practice. And I guess that just showed her, as she's like looking through these flashcards, like there were things that she would actually say. So it kind of just showed her that Tachibana is caring, which she like always knew, but maybe she's trying to see him in a different light now. Instead of just a friend, she's trying to see him as more, because everybody around her keeps telling her that Tachibana is this great guy and would make her happy. So I think she's trying to get into that mindset. So in that moment, she decides that she will go to New York with Tachibana. So she goes to see her girls to tell them the news that she will be moving to New York with Tachibana in like a few days, I guess. And they're very sad, but like they want her to be happy, so. Now, because she goes out with the girlies and gets drunk, Shima ends up taking her home and running into Tachibana, thankfully, because she's like, I cannot get this girl all the way up to her apartment, so you take her. And so Tachibana takes her up to her apartment, puts her to bed, and she's talking in her sleep, and he realizes she's saying Hirato's name, so she's obviously dreaming about him, which makes him realize that maybe he doesn't have a chance with her if she's still thinking about Hirato after all that he put her through. So, you know, this makes Tachibana feel some type of way, because obviously she's still thinking about Hirato. I mean, it hasn't been long since they However, Hiroto looks like he doesn't care about anything anymore. Anyway, he gets hurt during the tournament, and word gets back to Tachibana somehow. I'm assuming Choko-chan called Tachibana to tell him that Hiroto got hurt so that he can tell Sakura. That's what I'm guessing is going on. Because Tachibana then tells Sakura, like, oh my god, Hiroto got hurt at his tournament, and without really thinking much about it, Sakura leaves the wedding and runs down the street very dramatically to go to the skate park to see Hiroto. My girl thinks it's more effective to run down the street in heels when we already know that she's not very coordinated when it comes to wearing heels, instead of just calling a taxi. Also, I'm like, wouldn't it just be faster to call a taxi? Like, I cannot imagine how long it took her to get from the wedding party to the skate park. But dramatic effect. It is very dramatic to see a woman in a bright red dress and heels running down the street. Now, when Sakura finally gets to the skate park, she goes there out of breath, tired, her hair's a mess, and she sees Hiroto there perfectly fine. He did fall during one of his sets, but he was fine. So it seems like everybody lied to her to get him, or to get her to see him, I guess. And he's very surprised to see her there, standing in a red dress and heels, and is like, what is going on? And since he's fine, she's gonna leave, and he goes to go after her, and his friend is like, where are you going? You have another set to do, like, what are you doing? And he kind of says that he doesn't care. And that's when Sakura is like, what do you mean? You promised me that you would win this tournament. She's like, were you lying about that? Like, were you lying about wanting to win this tournament for me? And then she takes her ring off and throws it at him, which gives him the motivation he needs to do well in the tournament. So while Hiroto is doing his best at this tournament, Sakura runs to the bus station, which is again very dramatic because, you know, she's running through like this big bus station in no heels this time. She took off her heels because she couldn't do that again, understandably, but now she's barefoot and I'm like, girl, get a taxi! I don't know, maybe she doesn't have money on her because she is in a dress, but still. Anyway, she's running through this bus station looking for Tachibana, and she finds him, luckily, before he gets on the bus, and he's like, what are you doing here? Because he had every intention of leaving her behind, since he did try and con her into going to see Hiroto, right? So she tells him that she cannot go to New York with him because she needs to follow her heart, which is with Hiroto, which obviously Tachibana already knows. So her doing this was kind of pointless. I was like, girl, pick up a phone and call him. I don't know. Anyways. So yeah, very dramatic for no reason, because he already knew that she wasn't going to pick him over Hiroto. So she goes back to the skate park after her goodbyes with Tachibana, and everything's wrapped up. You know, tournament's done, everything's done. And Hiroto is leaving, he's all packed up and ready to go. And as he's walking down this huge flight of stairs, he feels a presence behind him, and he turns around and there's Sakura in her bright red dress and no shoes. And he's like, Sakura, like, he's surprised that she's back. So he asks when she's leaving for New York, and she says today, which makes him a little sad. And he brings up the last conversation they had the night that they, I guess, officially ended things, where he said a lot of mean things, and he says that he didn't mean any of them, obviously, and that he very much still loves her, but he thought that she would be better off with Tachibana, which is why he said all those things to her. And Sakura pouts and says that she doesn't believe that he was lying that night. But he assures her that he was lying. I didn't mean any of it. It was all a lie. He said, I very much love you. He said, all my days are meaningless. They've been meaningless since we broke up. And he just can't live without her, and he doesn't want to live without her. And he says that he will never lie to her again. And his words truly do feel genuine. You can tell in his face and his tone. He's telling the truth, right? He's like pleading with her at this point. So he tells her that he won the tournament and he attributes it to her, and he wouldn't have won if it wasn't for her. And then he says that he won't give up on his dreams and that he'll work really hard. Then he pulls out the ring that she threw at him earlier. And he proposes yet again. And in a moment of silence, she says yes. It's so cute! And then she tells him that she's not going to New York and that she doesn't want to live without him either. So cute, so sweet, such a like moment. Then he gets on his knee and slips the ring on her finger. They smile, they hug, they laugh, and they live happily ever after. Because if you believe hard enough, anyone can become Cinderella. That's not from me, that's from the show. Girl, I don't know about that. I hope so. I mean, I think that's what everybody wants, low-key, right? So that is the end of Last Cinderella. I love this show. I think it's really cute. I like the ending. So, my final thoughts on this show. I really enjoyed the character development for like every character in this show. I feel like especially with Hiruto, because when the show first starts, you're kind of supposed to see Hiruto as like this bad boy, when really he's just a sad boy. And being heavily controlled by his sister, and she like takes advantage of his guilt and makes him do these things that he doesn't even want to do in the first place. But a good thing does come out of it, obviously, because he meets Sakura, who he ends up falling in love with, which is fantastic. And also, like, you very quickly see him start to change after, like, that first date with Sakura. Like, he thinks that she's funny, he likes being in her presence, and the comfort that Momo maybe gave him at first wasn't cutting it anymore, and now he needed someone to fulfill everything for him, and that was Sakura. Also, I kind of like that Sakura doesn't fall for his advances right away. Like, it takes time, because I feel like typically in these sort of storylines, the girl's supposed to fall for the guy like right away, but that doesn't happen at all. Like, it takes her time to want to even date him, let alone to fall in love with him, which I think is kind of nice. And I like that he doesn't fall in love with her like instantly either. It takes him time as well. But when he does fall, he falls hard and fast. Like, you knew he was locked in as soon as he started getting jealous of her and Tachibana's relationship. Like, he was starting to see what Choco-chan was talking about, you know what I mean? Like, he was starting to understand Choco-chan's point of view of how close they are and all of that. I also love Sakura and her friends and like their little dynamic. They're just so cute together, and I think it's just, I don't know, they're just like the perfect friends. They all bring something to the friendship, and they're all quite different from each other, but they make just like the best three gal pals. I like how they're always doing stuff. Like, every single time we see them in the show, they're doing something. Like, they're at like the bathhouse, they're getting drinks or dinner or baking classes, you know, they're at Shima's fitness yoga class thing. They're just like always doing something together, and even in the end, like, they're always there for each other. I don't know, I just love their relationship in the show. That being said, I do really like the side plot in this show. Again, I feel like side plots usually suck in shows, but this one's good. I feel like it actually, you know, like, that could have been like a whole show on its own. There probably are shows like that about their situation. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of like how everything just ties in together. And I also really liked how they wrapped everything up at the end. I will say, as curious as I am to see how Hiruto and Sakura's relationship progresses, I think it's nice to leave it open-ended like that, because I would love to know how Hiruto's parents feel about him dating an older woman, and how her family feels about her dating a younger guy. I mean, her younger brother seems okay with it, but I'd like to see what her parents think. You know, how that dynamic will work. Is he gonna start working at his father's company, or is he gonna continue pursuing the BMX thing? Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm kind of curious, but it's nice to leave it open-ended and just think that they live happily ever after. And also, Haruma Miura, rest in peace. I really did fall in love with him the first time I watched this show back in the day, and I think he just brings something to the character that is so charming. And even when he's at first pretending to date Sakura and care about her and whatever for his sister's sake, even then, like, his charm and stuff, it feels genuine. It doesn't really feel like he's putting on an act. Especially when we do see him actually fall in love with her. He doesn't act much different from how he was when he was pretending to be in love with her. So I don't know. I think he just brings something to the table, and I think their dynamic is very cute. Also, Sakura trying to, you know, not pretending, what's the word? The actress does a very good job at being Sakura. Being this, you know, kind of like frumpy, middle-aged woman who acts like an old man and isn't very graceful and all that. Like, I think she does a really good job at playing that character because she's beautiful, first of all. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, yes, I can believe that this 24-year-old wants to be with this woman because she's gorgeous, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I love this show. I have yet to watch another Japanese drama that quite beats it for me. There's just something about this one that's just charming. It's pretty lighthearted for the most part. It's funny. And it has Haruma Miura. So hopefully you fell in love with him as well. Also, I love a good age gap relationship drama as long as it's legal and consensual, of course. I feel like I shouldn't have to say that, but yeah. I just think it brings a different dynamic to the table. You know, it doesn't matter if it's the woman that's older or the man that's older. It's fun to watch that dynamic play out and see if it works or not. And overall, I think in this drama, it worked. I don't know if it's just because they're both such charming people, Sakura and Hiroto, but it seems to work. So those are my final thoughts. Hopefully you'll want to watch this show as well. Or hopefully you at least liked my little recap and thoughts on the show. I just haven't watched this one in a while, so I wanted to check it out again. I needed a cute little romantic pick-me-up. So, yeah. Alright, I don't know what else to say. Bye. What is this? Sunlight? No ma'am. No ma'am. What the fuck?